Hi everyone, welcome back to Have a Beer with Eric. This is review number 16, and for today we have Savagewood Brewing Company's Mexican Amber Lager. It's 5.2%. It's called Spring Break Chaser, and I got this bottle for attending their beer and dinner pairing yesterday with the Good Seed Food Company. They decided to come together to make a pairing with Savagewood's beers. They had six beers, and they paired it with five different soups that the Good Seafood Company made, along with the mole and ice cream dessert. It was a fantastic event. I was able to attend as a reviewer, and so I'll be posting my review on Instagram soon. I just finished it, typing it a few minutes ago. It might come out too long to make it a text post, so I might just do screenshots as pictures and then add some pictures of the food and um, and the beer. So we'll see how that goes. But for now, I'll start. So this beer is actually the first beer that we had during the pairing, and I really enjoyed it. And let's pop it open. There we go. Oh, just a little too much head on there, a little too much foam. But I saved it. No spills. So as you can see, it's pretty dark. It's just a little see-through. Like when you put it up against the light, it's a dark, like kind of like just like a dark brown, like a mix of like brown and reddish hue. Um, it's not entirely dark. I can see like the shade of my finger um, through it. So I ended up with almost three fingers of head, and but that's fine because usually with this type of glass you end up with a pretty big amount of head. But well, just from what I could tell from my little sip from the foam, um, when I saved the from spilling, it had some roastiness character to it. It's actually more on the sweeter side, and on the nose, it's more like a kind of like caramel biscuity. It's actually very similar to like a just like a regular amber ale, but it's just like the lager version. And I wanted to do this beer because I think that recently lagers have been very underrated in the craft beer community, mainly because of how they are presented in the macro brewery business, in the macro beer business. So sorry, and I really enjoyed this beer as well, so I just decided to do it. And looks like that head retention is pretty nice. It went down like a finger, but still has like a finger and a half on there. And let's try the actual beer. So this beer is has a lot of roastiness to it. It's those dark malts that they used for the fermentation. It has it's not as like roasty as like a porter or a stout, but it definitely has like a sort of vibe that it's leaning towards to those dark beers. It's I feel like it's darker than like a regular red or amber. I mean, not just color because the color is definitely for sure darker, but I think it might be considered more like a dark lager rather than an amber lager. And but it also has like some of the malty sweetness, the like caramelly um, parts that you usually associate with a red or an amber. It has a pretty nice carbonation. It's low to or let's say maybe like medium carbonation. I mean the head was a pretty nice. Like it didn't go away. Like I still have like maybe like half a finger, so the head retention's pretty nice, but it's not high carbonated. It's not low where like it's all like gone and like we can't really um, appreciate the carbonation. So I'd say definitely it's like medium carbonated. It has a pretty light body despite the color and the flavor. Like it has usually people think that darker beers mean that darker beers are heavy beers or they're strong beers, but this one's actually like that's not really the case. There are a lot of stouts and porters that are actually very light, and this lager is actually pretty light too, despite the color. Um, it's very easy drinking. It's a little crisp, clean. It has a pretty nice smell, like roasted malts, but not too roasty. Like just a little like maybe like caramel malts that give it a nice like sweet smell to it. Yeah, I really enjoyed this beer last night. This beer was paired with a wonton soup with chicken and hoisin wontons, and it was the first course. It was a like a light bodied beer with a light soup, like that had just a little bit of oil to add to the body of the soup, and the wontons had like a good the hoisin made for a wonderful seasoning for the chicken, and and it was a pretty nice pairing with this beer. Um, Overall, we had a at the event last night. It was this beer, and then the second beer. I actually have the menu right here. We had a Scotch wee heavy, and then we had a saison and cider graph. So that when you combine a beer and a cider, it's a graph. So specifically, it's a saison and cider graph. And we had a dry Irish stout. We had a red IPA, West Coast red IPA, and a gingerbread stout on nitro. So out of all the beers, I think that I like the Wee Heavy the most, but this one is actually very enjoyable as well. So maybe my second or third favorite from last night. Um, I actually ended up saving some of this until the end of the food pairing, so I could still have some afterwards. I left maybe like 3 or 4 ounces because this one was actually ended up being a half pour since it was a low ABV. They gave us a half pour of this one, so I drank like half with my soup, and then I left the other half for later. And yeah, like I was saying, I think that lagers right now are pretty underrated. Nobody really thinks about having when you're really into craft beer, you just don't really think too much about getting lagers anymore. And I think that people should definitely go try more lagers. I've been trying to do that recently. I know that there's a couple of pilsners that I've really enjoyed, but I've been trying to try more than just pilsners because lagers are actually do have a big array of styles. It's just like ales. Like I think that pretty much any style that you can make with an ale, you might be able to do with a lager. I'm not entirely sure, but I know that a lot of styles you can make them. I know that Fall Brewing and Epic for sure make several types of lagers, and they've all been like especially Epic. They have a lot of recognition for their lagers. Both places are like you can get a flight just full of lagers, and they're all different styles, so that's awesome. And this one is pretty good as well. Like I think that if it was like a blind tasting, there's no way I would be able to tell that it's a lager. It's like it's not It doesn't lack taste. It's very rich in taste. A lot of caramel sweetness. Um, it's getting more sweet actually right now, so I really like that. Absolutely, like I don't think the IBUs have to be probably in the 10s or 20s because it's like there's like no bitterness for this whatsoever. As you can see, like I'm going pretty fast with this. It's very easy drinking, um, and very enjoyable. So this bottle might not last me too long. So and also it's only 5.2%, so it's a very sessionable beer to have. And I think I give this beer around 4.25 out of 5. Maybe we'll see as it warms up how I feel about it later. But I think that's my rating so far. And I definitely recommend you guys to go check out Savagewood in Scripps Ranch. And definitely also the Good Seafood Company. They're inside the Miralani Makers District. I believe they share space with Serpentine Cider and Lost Cause. But meadery. But yeah, they're wonderful people at both places. So go check them out. And that's pretty much it for this review. I'll see you guys around next week. Cheers.